calendar. We're both keeping up with it. I'm lying. I'm not keeping up with it very well. I've missed a lot of these.
Are you serious? You're not keeping up very well at all. Well, have you seen
No,
any of them?
I saw the first two.
All right, hold on. Let's get into this
Yeah, let's
here.
talk about Christmas movies.
Yeah. No, I'm ready to get into it. Oh, did I freeze us by minimizing that? There's no way. I did, didn't I? So it's got to stay like that. All right, whatever.
Whatever.
I mean, it doesn't really matter, but you know.
Mm-hmm.
So over at youtube.com/Evan McBee, you and I looked at some of our favorite Christmas movies and set up a calendar, sort of an advent of Christmas movies to watch as we move through the Christmas season. And we put, I think, a lot of classics on there. There's some good ones we missed, you know. We missed Fred Claus, I realized this week.
Mm-hmm.
We got all these Christmas movies, and I know from my Halloween experience, it's pretty ambitious to watch a movie a night or two in a day, like we were supposed to do yesterday. So tell me about how your first week went with Scrooged, Mickey's Christmas Carol, Bad Santa, Office Christmas Party, Miracle on 34th Street, and The Grinch.
Well, sometimes we get distracted over here in my household where we have the best of intentions and we're going to start watching something like Scrooge. But say that night, that Tuesday night, we didn't even watch Scrooge on Tuesday. We went through the Netflix stuff. And Netflix kind of blindsided me this year. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but it was basically December 1st. They released the Kraken of all the Christmas movies. Like, they just added everything. Like, before that, it was kind of like a dearth of Christmas movies. There was some stuff there, some Netflix originals. All the Princess Christmas movies were available. But they really added their heavy hitters.
Oh, really? What
December 1st.
What do you think they added?
Well, one thing, and here's what we ended up watching on Tuesday, was a little movie called Christmas Break-In, which I had to say it out loud before I got that it was kind of a pun title, because it's like Christmas break from school. Mm-hmm. But it was like Christmas Break-In because these villains, the ice cream truck bandits or whatever their names are in the movie, they're like hiding from the cops. They break into a school where this little girl is there all alone. So it's also like a Home Alone analog. Because her parents, played by Denise Richards and another guy, leave her. They forgot to pick her up after school the last day before break. So she's alone at school. And the wise janitor is Danny Glover, who's looking out for her and teaching her guitar. It's a wild movie.
Wow. Also, he's teaching her guitar.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I think I could watch that movie. How long is it?
It's the perfect 80 minutes. Like, they know they have nothing.
Movie, yeah.
And they just, like, they get through it. And it's even short. I think it's like 80 minutes, but, like, the last 7 or 8 minutes is all, like, outtakes for the end credits. Mm-hmm. So it's even shorter than that. Like, they know we got to get in and out. We have Danny Glover. We have Denise Richards. We have nothing else.
Are there any others that you, like, added to the queue?
No, besides that stuff that Alana and I have talked about. Like, I think she watched a Dolly Parton specific thing earlier today.
And the verdict is still out?
I think she liked it. Okay. But, that was just kind of like a random choice that I mentioned. The other issue, like with the list that we came up with, is honestly too good. It's so good that nobody wants to make these movies widely available on streaming platforms. And I have all of them. I have Hulu, Netflix, HBO, Stars even. I've got everything. And a lot of these movies just are not there. Like, you got AMC, a trial just to watch Scrooged, right?
That's right.
So we both watched that one. We could definitely talk about this because now it's fresh in our memories.
Yeah.
Is another one that I don't think is the 90s version isn't readily available, but the old one's on Disney Plus. The 30s version is on.
Yeah. Did you watch that one?
I did not.
Yeah, me neither. Moments. Where does Scrooge fall for you? Where does Scrooge fall for you in the Bill Murray movie rankings?
I mean, I guess it's like Ghostbusters has to be number one. Has to be. And then maybe this is two. I guess it's up there. It's like, it's peak Murray in the sense that he's just very dissatisfied with everything that's going on around him. And I can't tell how much of that is the character Frank Cross and how much is just like a decade in, Bill Murray is sick of being ultra famous.
I think, yeah, that's an interesting thought. My favorite Bill Murray is definitely Groundhog Day.
Oh yeah,
Ghostbusters.
Maybe that's the same. Maybe that's the peak. Honestly, I forgot. I blanked on Groundhog Day, but maybe that's the peak of Bill Murray being dissatisfied with everything around him. Is Groundhog Day.
So, how do you feel about Meatballs?
It's been so long since I've seen it. Like I watched it on, like a DirecTV movie channel 20, 25 years ago. I don't know.
I've watched Meatballs this year. It's really good. That's a fun movie. I would like for them to make more movies like Meatballs. And a lot of people felt that way because they did actually make like 2 or 3 other Meatballs movies. And I've seen at least one, and they're not good. I think Bill Murray might have even come back for Meatballs too. But in any case, Meatballs is good. Uncle Buck held up really well. Have you seen Uncle Buck with John Candy?
Yeah, is Bill Murray in that? I remember it being
John Candy. He's not. He was not. I was just thinking about movies that like maybe I don't really hear anybody bring up Uncle Buck when they're remembering John Candy, but that's a funny movie. So Meatballs, I don't think that's that big of a hit. Then obviously he becomes a megastar with Caddyshack and then Stripes. Stripes, everyone talks about how bad the end is. I love the front so much, and even when they're picking up the army girls in the tank, I still like that. I don't know. How do you feel about Stripes?
I remember liking it. It's been a while, and it didn't make like a lasting impression for me. And I forget how many times I've seen it. It could be 2 or 3 times. But I don't remember a lot about it.
A dozen times.
Yeah. Probably time to watch
it
again.
So many times. I love Harold Ramis.
Yeah, it's too bad that their friendship kind of fell apart, and that was because of Groundhog Day. Like they had creative differences working on that project about tone and everything. So that really soured their working relationship for the rest of Harold Ramis's life.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, for me, I think I'm probably going Groundhog top of the heap, then Ghostbusters 1. Do you like Ghostbusters 2 more? I hear people do.
I liked it. Well, Ghostbusters 2 was made for kids. Like Ghostbusters is like a real. It's like a real movie. It's like a real. It is a real movie. And then Ghostbusters, like they have the cartoon, they have all the toys. They realize there's a huge licensing opportunity here, so they make Ghostbusters 2 with the children audience in mind. That was not really. I mean, Ghostbusters 1 to me when I was a kid was too scary. Like Ghostbusters 2 was more in my wheelhouse as like a 5-year-old. I was like, this is for me. I like the cartoons. I like the toys. This movie's for me. And it's like the biggest clue of that is if you listen to the score, especially the musical score on Ghostbusters 2, there's so much indicating going on. It's telling you how to feel every step of the way. And that's just not what's going on.
Like a cartoon.
Yeah, like a cartoon.
I gotta say, my dad showed me Carrie when I was like 5. And so after Carrie, it was all gravy, you know?
Yeah.
I got up to get my phone charger, and I forgot that that's what I got up to get, so I didn't get it. I need to go get it at some point.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I think you're right. I remember being scared of Ghostbusters, but I also remember being scared of the Temple of Doom, which was another one that we watched all the time, which is pretty intense for a little bit.
Which I think was how they got the PG-13 rating invented. I think that was because of Temple of Doom. Like they were like, we need something between PG and R because this is it.
Yeah. No, these are like gags. I don't know what's going on exactly, but like that was like a gag, like a kid-like gag. They look good there still. They're young, you know.
Yeah, this is Ghostbusters 2, yeah.
Yeah. It's the trailer, I guess, or some clip of some sort.
Yeah, it's really funny how Ghostbusters 2 is honestly kind of far removed because 1 is 84 and 2 is 89. So that's like a huge gap in terms of, going back for a sequel. And then, of course, they just kept, they never ultimately got back to Ghostbusters 3 with the original cast. They, eventually they did the female remake, but that was like something that was stuck in
acclaimed remake.
Yeah, that was something that was stuck in essentially development hell for decades. And a big part of why they never ended up making it after Groundhog Day was because of like the sort of the love lost between Ramis and Murray. But it was like, Dan Aykroyd's kind of I won't say nut, but he's much more into the supernatural.
I'll say he's a nut. He's crazier as hell.
Yeah.
He's into the Skull vodka.
Yeah.
What's that about? But he's into the Crystal Skull vodka because he thinks the crystal skulls are real.
Right.
Peep Show's got a great joke about that, where Mark is dating a woman who's really into crystal skulls, and he's just like, "No, I can't do it."
So it's like, Aykroyd's the one he's the, I guess, the heart and soul in a certain sense of Ghostbusters, because he's the true believer. He's the true believer of Ghostbusters. Like, if it wasn't for him, Ghostbusters rides this fine line between being, on the one hand, like a sci-fi, take it seriously kind of thing, but then also, on the other hand, like a Bill Murray pastiche, satirical comedy farce sort of thing. And if it wasn't for Dan Aykroyd, like, being that true believer, it would just be completely to one side crazy farce. Like, there wouldn't be that sort of, there's also a threat of ghost. Like, we're actually worried about them at a certain point during the plot.
Yeah. I guess probably it's weird that for Dan Aykroyd these were like kind of true. That probably hampered the irony and the fun a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, probably especially for Murray, who just wants to be, he just wants to be silly about it.
Yeah.
I'm just reading too much into what I see in his performances.
I don't like Little Shop of Horrors. I don't think he makes any movies that are any good between Ghostbusters and Scrooged.
Who, Bill Murray?
Yeah.
You don't like Little Shop of Horrors? That's a hot take, in my opinion.
I know it's a hot take. It's not for me. I don't know. People love this movie. I know that, like, I'm not the one that is in the right here. Like, people aren't going to hear me say that and go, "Oh yeah, he's right. That movie's not any good." I get that. I just don't get it. It wasn't for me. So I don't know how. I mean, I don't hear people bring it up. I don't hear people talk about, "Oh, did you ever see Little Shop of Horrors? Bill Murray's so funny. What about that scene?" I don't hear it. Do you?
Mm-hmm. Oh no, I don't hear it. But I mean, I always thought of it as like, a weird, like a cult film, a cult classic. Like, I saw it on broadcast. We recorded it off whatever it was, ABC or NBC way back in the day. So we had a broadcast tape of it that we used to watch. And I just loved the music growing up as a kid. And also, my high school, when I was younger, before I went to the high school, like when I was a kid, the high school did a Little Shop of Horrors production with the big plant and everything. So I went to see that as a kid. So it was just like part of my growing up experience. I just really liked it. And I love the music. I already said, I love the music.
My dad's a big SCTV fan, and he loves Rick Moranis, and relieved when they caught the guy that punched him.
Yeah.
He was genuinely relieved. He's like, "Hey, did you hear they caught the guy that punched Rick Moranis?" I was like, "I heard. That's good."
So he must really enjoy Strange Brew. That would be another cult classic Rick Moranis performance, the Canadian.
He loves Spaceballs.
Oh yeah.
That's his movie, man. The Schwartz. He couldn't find anything funnier in the world. Yeah. Spaceballs is one of those movies where, like, it probably just into the ether, but now Disney owns Star Wars, and so it's just going to live on forever as a parody. Those movies will never go away.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've seen kids react badly to Star Wars, right? You've heard that this happens in Star Wars, and they're used to Thor, and so they're like, "Eh."
Yeah, okay. Actually, I think a funny story. This is a slight tangent, but I taught a class like right before or like right after The Force Awakens came out, the new Disney Star Wars Episode 7. And so I had an 18-year-old in this class who was like very into Star Wars. So I just wonder, it's a very brief story because I just wonder what ended up happening to that kid. Like if Disney Star Wars eventually broke his heart, because those last two movies especially were so divisive, episodes 8 and 9. And 9, I think everyone just identifies as objectively bad. Like, I wonder, that kid was so into Star Wars, if he ended up having to just, like, quit. He had to walk away.
My brother-in-law walked away. My brother-in-law is like one of the biggest Star Wars fans I ever met. Marshall models, builds these incredible, super realistic. They're thousands of dollars. These incredible Millennium Falcons with working lights and all that stuff. All kinds of action figures in the boxes. The whole deal.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, it's just done. I don't remember what point in the latest. I think he was still in after, what was the first one? The Last Jedi?
Well, The Force Awakens was 7, then The Last Jedi was 8. And they
think
had
he
the
was-
the one in
I think
between
he-
was Rogue One.
I think he was still hanging around after The Force Awakens, and then he just bailed at some point.
Yeah.
Which makes sense to me. I don't think those movies are great, but I'm just saying that, like, to a kid, Star Wars is dated. When I show it to my wife, she's,
Well, that was the How I Met Your Mother plot. I love this joke about Stella had never seen Star Wars, right? So they have that whole episode where Ted shows Stella Star Wars, and she's like, she just makes fun of it. Like, she didn't grow up with it, so she's just like, they're talking to that space bear. What do you think, bear? It's just,
But what I'm saying is, like, I think that gets sort of salvaged because people will fall in love with the story and the characters because now it lives on with Disney.
Maybe. I mean, I don't.
Well, does Spaceballs get even funnier then if people think it's more of a joke?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I gotta be honest. I don't entirely get Spaceballs. Like, it doesn't make me laugh out loud the way that it makes other people. Because I get that some people, like your dad, and I've met other people who fall in this camp of like, it's literally LOL funny. Like, it's rolling on the floor laughing out loud funny. Yeah, and to me, it's like I just kind of see the jokes are just kind of. It just doesn't do it. I'm not saying it's bad. It just doesn't do it for me in terms of making me laugh.
That's fair. I get that. We get some real stinkers in the here from old Bill Murray. I mean, there's some gems, but they're really here and there for the most part for me. I don't particularly enjoy his pop-in appearances. I really like his late years, though, where he's like crazy old man.
Is this like everything like Rushmore and later?
Rushmore and well, yeah, that's probably the turn, right? Because The Man Who Knew Too Little, I actually like that movie. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah, I've seen it.
He's basically still playing like a regular aged person in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I don't even know. He's kind of playing a 40-year-old virgin type character. Like, he's a middle-aged man, but he's a fool. He's tricked into going to London. He's an idiot. I don't really understand that movie.
Yeah, he's kind of Mr. Bean.
Yeah, he's Mr. Bean. I don't know. But, yeah, so Rushmore forward. Rushmore, Hamlet, Sophelia's Father, Lost in Translation, Coffee and Cigarettes. How do you feel about that?
Never saw it.
That's all right. I think some of these are a little moody for me. Broken Flowers. I think there's another one or two of those that are mixed in here.
Yeah.
I don't know. How do you feel about the, like, purely dark St. Vincent?
I never saw any of these. I got enough with Rushmore. Like, I like Rushmore a lot.
Yeah.
Rushmore is a great film. I own it on Blu-ray. But that sort of type of Bill Murray character doesn't draw me in.
Well, we've got another Bill Murray coming up with a very Murray Christmas, which is the 14th.
Yeah. It's on Netflix, so I have easy access. I will definitely watch it day of. No doubt in my mind.
Well, speaking of a very Merry Christmas, Scrooged, getting back on track there.
I think Richard Donner's career is really something. I don't know. There's no easy way for me to sum it up because it's all over the place, and there's so many good ones.
I don't know who Richard Donner was in the film.
Well, he's the director. He just directed the film.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. What are his other works?
Superman the movie.
Oh, wow.
All the Lethal Weapon films.
Okay.
Let's see, Conspiracy Theory with Mel Gibson. He actually kind of had a Mel Gibson run for a while.
Yeah.
They did Maverick together and Conspiracy Theory and, of course, all the Lethal Weapons. And I asked myself, like, why isn't Richard Donner still making films? And it's almost unfair for me to expect him to because he's 90 years old. So He basically retired after he made Timeline with Paul Walker. If you ever saw that one from 2003.
16 Blocks is also good. I've seen
Yeah.
this.
And then after that, he's basically done. But, he must have been in his 70s at the time when he did 16 Blocks. So it's a solid career. Oh, and I guess the other one from the 80s he's probably most known for is The Goonies.
Yeah, well, I guess it's a great career except for Radio Flyer and the Goonies, you know?
Yeah, I'm not super into The Goonies. He
The
did,
Omen.
yeah, The Omen. He directed an early Wachowski script, who would go on, they would direct The Matrix, but he directed a script they did for Stallone and Banderas called Assassins in the mid-90s.
This one. Do we just talk the Warner Brothers news now since it's kind of come up?
Yeah, let's talk about Warner Brothers. This is crazy. So no one has to leave home ever again. All the Warner Brothers movies will be available to you on HBO Max day of, in America at least. Worldwide, it's a little different.
How do you feel about that? On Twitter, you said you were excited to get the movie theater to yourself. Nick seems to be pretty concerned about the future of theaters, period.
Yeah, I just kind of copied and pasted this list that I have up on my screen now from Variety. And there's certain movies on the list that Warner Brothers has said they're going to release to HBO Max that if it's in the theater, I will still go see it in the theater. And the two big ones for me are Dune, which was supposed to come out Christmas of this year and then got pushed back to October of 2021. I'll go see Dune in the theater if it's available, if theaters are there. And I will go see Matrix 4, which is how we got on this subject, which is the Christmas release of next year for some reason. I'm not entirely sure about the marketing or the reasoning for that. Like, The Matrix doesn't necessarily strike me as a Christmas movie. But if the theater is an option, I will definitely go for those two, for Dune and Matrix.
I mean, I guess for me, the big thing with The Matrix being on Christmas is, and people talked about that with Wonder Woman. Everybody's at home on Christmas looking for something to do. You get the presents, you're waiting for a late, I think a lot of people do Christmas dinner at, 2, 3 in the afternoon, 4 o'clock, something like that. A big breakfast, cinnamon rolls or croissants or something fun, And so you're sitting around, if you've got a big hit movie to watch on Netflix, although I guess your family's got to be a real certain type of family to watch The Matrix on Christmas between opening presents and Christmas dinner, right? That's not every family.
And personally, I have no idea what direction the Wachowskis are going to go with this film. And I think it's only one of them. I think only one of them left and they're no longer working together as siblings. So it's just one of the Wachowskis directed this film, I believe. So I have no idea if it's going to be that sort of, because the original is very much an R-rated action film.
Yeah.
It's very violent. But then they've also done things like Speed Racer, which is much more a family film. Like, if that came out at Christmas, it's appropriate for the whole family to watch together. And then later things like, Sense8 on Netflix, I never finished. So that series I can't speak authoritatively on, but it's also, I think a little more mature and has a much more sort of limited appeal in terms of its audience. And Jupiter Ascending, clearly, it was more of a teenage fantasy, but also didn't really have broad appeal. No one went to see it. So Matrix 4, I don't know. Does anybody still even care? I care, but I was there the first time. I was there in the 90s when it reinvented cinema, action cinema.
Yeah. No, I care, but I don't think I could bring myself to rewatch Matrix 3.
You don't think so? Okay.
If I'm being honest. I've seen it again. I've seen it multiple times. But the odds that there's pretty good odds I've rewatched Matrix 1 and 2 in preparation of 4. I don't think I could get through 3.
Yeah. To an extent, that's fair. I think, I may have said this before, but what they wanted to do with the sequels is they wanted a prequel and a sequel for The Matrix. They wanted to tell the story of how we got to the situation we were in the first Matrix movie, and they wanted a follow-up that was, okay, how do we get out of it, so they repurposed some of that to the cartoons they did, the Animatrix. The second Renaissance two-parter kind of tells that story of what would have been the prequel movie. But the reason Warner Brothers is you can't do that in an actual movie is because we need star power. You can't do a prequel because then Keanu Reeves, Lawrence Fishburne, so on down the line, the cast isn't there. So you can't make an unrelated movie that doesn't have this cast that we need to bring back. So they kind of were forced to tell what is ultimately like a one movie story in the sequel in 2 movies.
Well, it's too bad they didn't share that news with Disney before they started on this whole Star Wars thing, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I get that. I don't know. I guess if you're going to watch The Matrix 4, you're going to have HBO Max. And I assume they must secure the rights for the other Matrix movies to stream before that comes out, right? How do they not get that lined up?
Oh, yeah, but they're there now. You can go watch The Matrix on HBO right now.
Sure, but things go on and off of that.
Yeah. Well, I bet it comes back. If it goes away, I bet it comes back.
Well, there's probably a pretty good chance I at least watch it while I'm going for a walk or something.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, watch it while falling asleep, something like that. So I'll probably end up rewatching Matrix 3. What would I go to a movie theater for? Now, I don't know. What would get me out? I don't want to see most things in the theater, if I'm being honest. And there's some things that I don't even necessarily think are necessarily like big action and sound and things like that. But like I love seeing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in the theater, Parasite in the theater, and I like good movies at the theater too. So I don't really know what gets me out. Like I wouldn't want to go see Mank in the movie theater. I'm not interested.
All right, so in terms of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I'm going into conspiracy territory here real quick. Because again, it's one of those clues, maybe just a coincidence, but I see it as like Quentin Tarantino had some inside knowledge about what was going to happen to theaters in 2020. He was like, okay, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's a fairy tale. It's over. Roll end credits. It's like, it almost seems like such a, again, as a coincidence, like so bizarrely well placed as a coda to the experience of going to see films in theaters. It makes me conspiracy minded. Like, how did he know?
He makes great art. He got in touch with the truth of the universe to put it out. Petty, Point Break Zone.
Yeah.
See us talk Point Break at maybe Comics, or is it Evan McBee?
Oh, I changed it to Dr. Comics, so now the channel name makes more sense. So that's youtube.com/Dr. Comics.
Nailed it.
Yeah. I'm becoming more consistent in my online branding. We'll get there eventually.
I love to see it.
So Johnny Mnemonic, though, is like, it's just a piece of the puzzle that I had to get around to eventually. I had to watch it for historical sake.
I saw it when I was a kid. I don't really remember it that well. I don't know why I haven't rewatched it. I would. Am I crazy, or is Sandra Bullock in that too?
You are crazy, because that's that's Demolition Man, which is also, in terms of production design, very similar. That whole period from like 93 to 97, like everything before Blade, I would say, in the 90s in terms of action movies, like had this sort of, like they were clearly marketing, like these sci-fi action movies were marketing to kids like us at the time. Like it was like a little bit edgy, but also safe for kids.
Well, yeah, RoboCop was like this wild, crazy movie, but it was perfect to make action figures out of. And I had RoboCop action figures.
Yeah. But it was also still like, I had RoboCop action figures too. They had like the little caps in the back that would make, you pop it and make like gun noises. But RoboCop in the 80s, we already talked about this kind of, like the 80s in general, like Ghostbusters or other movies like that, they weren't making the films like kids first or like kids safe in mind. Like RoboCop is, again, a super violent film. But it's incredible. I mean, the appeal's there. Kids are going to find it. It's maybe just not appropriate for them in terms of the level of violence.
If you had kids, how old would they have to be for you to let them watch Scrooged?
I don't know. I mean, I guess 8 seems like it doesn't. Well, I don't know how much of it makes sense, because I was thinking about this. I'm not sure when I saw it for the first time, but there's jokes in here that I did not get until I watched Scrooge this week. Like when the homeless people keep referring to him as Richard Burton. That was not a joke that I got as a child. And it's like this extended sequence. I'm not even sure where it comes from, but they're like, please, Mr. Burton, do the line.
That's funny.
And that's actually,
Yeah.
speaking of funny, you're laughing at it now. I was laughing at it this time. This to me was like more laugh out loud funny than Spaceballs this time. Some of the jokes in Scrooge literally had me laughing.
How do you feel about Schmoopy?
Lumpy?
Or Lumpy? That's what it is. Lumpy. Schmoopy is from Seinfeld. Lumpy,
Yeah,
because he gets bonked on the head.
this is,
I
oh, you go ahead.
I think Lumpy is maybe the emotional core of this movie. Like, I think when you show this to people, the thing that makes them connect to this character is that once upon a time he let this terrible nickname kind of stick.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he liked her that much. But here's like the biggest, okay, you can see this is Hollywood at work in Scrooge. They give him a happy ending. But I mentioned this before, I haven't read the original Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, but I know he doesn't get the girl at the end of the original story. Like that girl's gone. Like
Yeah.
she's in the wind, bro. It's over. You don't get her back. And I said this week texting to you. I just said it's a red flag that this woman waited 15 years or was available 15 years after they broke up. That's crazy. That's like Hollywood at work being like, okay, we're going to redo this story so that now Scrooge, he gets the girl at the end. So that's insane. But as a kid, it's like you're along for the ride. That to me makes sense. As an adult, I'm like, that
Yeah.
makes no sense. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally see where you're coming from. On the other hand, I feel like as I get older, I feel like, I know a lot of people now that are in their early to mid 30s, and I don't know if they're ever going to find a partner or a soulmate. And I think they're good people. Like, they're people that I really like and I think are fun and cool. And you might meet these people and be like, wait a minute, no one ever loved you, and it just didn't happen. No one ever loved them.
yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I don't know. I don't know if even sad's the right word. It's something.
I'm
But
saying I think that's the real world. I think there's a lot of people that are great, they're fun, they've even been in successful relationships before, and then all of a sudden they're 38 and there's nobody around. And I think that's just what happened to her. That's my theory on it.
oh,
But yeah,
okay. So, yeah.
I agree that it's a red flag in principle, but also I sort of see it, like I feel like I see it in my own life, and I even see it around me and people. I'm like, yeah, you're 32, but there's nothing on the horizon.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And like I see a lot of people in my life at that stage as kind of having made peace with it. Like, no, I'm doing my own thing. And like, yeah, I go on dates from time to time, but like I do my thing. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And maybe some of that's guys that are particularly poor at some of these sorts of things. I don't know.
Yeah.
By the way, if you're listening to this, I'm talking about you, but you know who I am talking about.
Yeah. This, but I mean, it works in the movie because Karen Allen her performance is so great, and it's like she's from that kind of type of ingenue that was popular at the time. Like say Andy McDowell, I think also goes in this category.
What? I don't know about that. Annie McDowell is quite a lot more attractive to me than Karen Allen.
Oh well, I mean, to me, they're both just they're. I mean, I find both of them honestly less romantically attractive, and just they both read to me as just like mother replacements. Like Bill
Mm.
Murray and like I think both Groundhog Day and in Scrooged, like and then also, uh, well, Sigourney Weaver, Sigourney. I'm doing the pronunciation wrong. Sigourney Weaver.
It's Sigourney, I think, but now I don't even know.
Right. Sigourney Weaver is honestly like she's a little more like sexual, but even I'm just trying to make a pattern fit. She's more sexual, but like Karen Allen and Andy McDowell to me are a lot more just like mother replacements that the protagonist of the film like needs this. He needs this person in their life. But in Ghostbusters, it's funny because it's not a romantic movie. She doesn't need Bill. She doesn't need Dr. Venkman in her life. In fact, she needs to avoid him if at all possible. He's bad news, and she knows that.
Yeah, yeah. No, that is true. Although, what is she? She's like a soloist, a classical musician of
Hmm.
some sort.
Yeah.
By the way, I recommend Faust on Pandora, the ballet. There's like an album you can play on Pandora, Faust the ballet. It was beautiful.
Okay.
The London Symphony Orchestra.
All right.
Maybe think of that. Uh, yeah, so she's like in the symphony. I don't know. He's a professor buster. That's pretty good.
Yeah, but he's a sleaze. He's a scam artist.
Yeah, but her other option is Rick Moranis.
Or the guy that's doing the I forget the thing you shoot up your nose with antihistamine, I guess.
Oh yeah.
The other guy, the other musician, who was kind of uptight, but probably would have been better for her. But the movie, you're watching the Ghostbusters movie, so you're rooting for the Ghostbusters, even if they're mostly bad people.
Yeah, no, that's accurate. I'm always rooting for the Black Panther. It's all about Killmonger. Killmonger's the hero of that movie to me. When I watch Scrooged, the hero to me is
Bobcat Goldthwait.
Well, no. What's the name of the actor, the schmarmy guy who comes in from L.A.?
Oh, that's I forget, but he played Lionel Luthor on Smallville.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, and then also a mad scientist in Batman and Robin.
Ooh, I don't remember that. Lionel Luthor is the fellow's name?
Yeah, but I think John is the actor's real first name. Tell me if I'm right.
John Glover. You nailed it.
Yeah, and also, here's another connection with Scrooge in another 80s movie that John Glover is also in. This sort of corporate aesthetic, like high tower, important New York skyscraper aesthetic, also reminds me a lot of Gremlins 2, the new batch, which John Glover was also in. Which, if you remember that one, it's the one where the Gremlins take over a skyscraper, basically.
I didn't remember that one.
Yeah.
The 80s skyscraper thing, definitely a big deal. Nakatomi Towers, right?
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, I think, skyscraper-centric thinking and shooting. Even Rush Hour has a bunch of scenes in kind of like iconic-looking towers. Although, the Bond movies carry that through. I guess they're just sort of dramatic settings, is the deal. 100-story tower is dramatic.
I think especially in the 80s, there was just the monoculture or the zeitgeist was a lot more like it. I mean, to an extent in Scrooge, they're vilifying it. They're saying don't be tied up and just caring about work. You got to care about people too. But it's still there is an appeal to the aesthetic of the corporate culture in a way that American Psycho is an interesting sort of movie out of time because it would fit in well in the 80s, but it's also very much like that film is, a teardown of, it's all evil. It's here's the facade and then here's the terrible, evil underneath it.
Yeah. No, they're very much on similar vibes. And, to quote Hamlet, the play's the thing. And in Scrooge, in the production of A Christmas Carol, we see how vapid and empty not just this production is, but the thinking behind it. And so to devote your time to watching this empty entertainment is empty, and all the money is sort of dirt. It's all commercialism. It's vapid. It's empty.
Mm-hmm.
And so, this movie definitely has a pretty strong commentary. I guess Scrooge is... The character Scrooge in A Christmas Carol is sort of inherently anti-capitalist. But this movie in particular seems to be taking aim at a certain kind of American consumerism that very much lines up for me with stuff like American Psycho.
Mm-hmm. The way the movie opens, the way Scrooge opens with the parodies, and then the parodies of what's on network television ended up being, I don't know if forward thinking is the right phrase, but I mean, that's all kind of stuff that just ended up being on television in the 20, 25 years that followed the movie anyway. I mean, that's all the kind of stuff that would be there. And even the live production of A Christmas Carol, it's maybe not as sensational as all that, but NBC, I think, has done a whole series of these live performances of things like Peter Pan Jesus Christ Superstar, West Side Story, or Grease. I forget which one. They've done basically this model of television quite a bit. And, it seems like in Scrooged, it's more of, this is a parody. No one would ever do this. But they did.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. I agree with all that. I think probably sometimes it's hard to see kind of what the tone is at the time with some of this very meta stuff, because I just referenced Hamlet and Shakespeare, but like there's this whole piece within Shakespeare which isn't really about Hamlet very much at all. It's just about this sort of competition between these two theater companies. And so, how much of these sort of jokes are jokes about things that we don't have sort of the context to understand, even from the perspective of like TV shows? Because you're like, well, if the joke is like, this is a ridiculous show to eventually, it did eventually come on TV. It's like, I don't know, like, is that about some other thing that was kind of going on in the culture? And there's also kind of like what seems to me a trope where people have to choose between like success in their career and making no money in a nonprofit. That's like a thing that movies do a lot. Mm-hmm. Even in Homeland, they did it, where there's this sort of false binary created. Mm-hmm. And so, like, is any of this a commentary on that trope? Since it is, I think it's a really smart movie. I thought it was smart, well written, right? Like, did it feel that way to you?
Yeah, and again, I want to give credit to Richard Donner for being able to like walk this fine line of like shifting tones throughout the film, because there's the cab driver makes a joke about Niagara Falls, but also it is emotional. So there's like it's going, and then it'll have the bits where it's like, okay, first the homeless people ask about, do the line, Mr. Burton, please do the line. And then he finds the guy, and it's probably the saddest part of the movie, he finds the guy frozen underground, right? Like, I get choked up just thinking about that scene again. So Richard Donner, again, I'll just give credit for being able to shift when it's appropriate throughout the film.
You're 100% right. The film is really emotional. I was thinking that I felt, indicted in some way by some of the scenes with his brother. As a brother, I'm like, I'm not as good of a brother as I should be. But you even feel like some kind of pang of like, oh man, I need to be a good brother this Christmas. The film has to be pretty good. You got to be pretty good to kind of give you a touch of that, to make you feel something. As a balance, for example, I watched Tron last night. I didn't feel a thing.
Wait, the old one or the new one?
The new one.
Man, it's so good. I love that one. I got to go watch it right now.
Yeah, no, it was a visually fun experience. I just meant, narratively, I didn't feel much for Cora and whatnot. It was a really well done movie. You don't like the happy ending. I thought that sort of like the violent theatrics of sort of the shotgun shootout and whatever, I thought that was somewhat self-parody in a way. I thought that was smart as well, right?
You mean with like Bobcat Goldthwait coming in?
Well, they're sort of skewering the notion that the TV audience wants to have like this like action shootout, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then this movie, which definitely doesn't have to have an action shootout, has an action shootout. And so I sort of saw that as like deeply ironic and sort of a bit of a self-parody.
Yeah.
Like that they were making a joke of themselves. And I felt like there was a bunch of that stuff in the movie where like they were aware of it. Like they were in on the joke. And like a lot of people that watch the movie, you're not even thinking about that joke, but they were making it,
Yeah, that's really smart. That's a good take, because I would have been like, if I was a producer on the film, I would have been like a problem, because I would have said, can we lose Bobcat? I mean, I don't know what this really adds to the project. Like, I don't get it. Like, and again, as a kid watching the movie, I'm watching the film, it's like, okay, that's the story. Whatever the story is like, I just accepted it at face value. But as an adult watching it, I'm just like scratching my head thinking like, this seems out of place. And more than anything, I was just giving credit to Donner for having this sort of out of place plot element of the ex-employee going nuts and coming in with a shotgun. I was just like, well, I mean, he makes it work. It doesn't 100% gel with the rest of the movie for me. But you're right. That's why they did it. It was on purpose. It was a conscious decision. They were smart. You're smart. I'm the dumb one.
I don't know about that. But I think that that's one way to think about it for sure. The other thing I think about the Bobcat Goldthwait part is that you probably remember that Scrooge is mean to his employee, Bob Cratchit.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, Bobcat is like the stand-in for Bob Cratchit. You know, there's got to be kind of some employee that is sort of the, he's sort of the, he does a passion play of sorts by taking the abuse to show us how depraved, Ebenezer Scrooge is, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess they had to split that because there's also, I mean, the Tiny Tim is his secretary's son.
Right.
So I always just thought of her as the Cratchit.
Yeah, I mean, he seems to be almost the most human to her. I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe she's the Cratchit. He's definitely the Tiny Tim. I don't disagree with that. That kid sort of helps him find some more heart. But, one of the things that is sort of, in the character building of A Christmas Carol, it's like, how do we know Scrooge is a bad guy? Well, look at the way he treats that guy. And I feel like Elliot Loudermilk gets treated quite a lot worse than the secretary. See, he's not nice to the secretary, but he's not that bad to the secretary, is he? I'm probably saying this and people will pull up like 100 clips of him being like, you should be tortured with coal. And I'm like, all right, maybe he's pretty rough.
It's really crazy because, I mean, she's worked there in the movie. She's worked for him for at least 3 years, right? Because they make statements to that effect. Uh-huh. And I don't entirely understand it. Like, they clearly have an effective working relationship. It seems like there's a lot of abuse there, but for whatever reason, they're good together. Him and his secretary, like, they seem to be like a good team at the company.
There's a Mad Men quote that Bailey and I use a lot when we think about our jobs, and Peggy, who is sort of Don's right-hand man, is complaining about Don not thanking her for the way that she contributes at work.
I know what the quote is. I know what she's going to say.
And Don says, that's what the money is for.
Yeah, right.
And, at the end of the day, I do a little bit side with, the means of production a little bit in terms of like, it's not all a blast. You got to work late sometimes. That's what the money is for. Mm-hmm. If you were just here because you liked hanging out with me, I wouldn't have to pay you. We'd pay you because you have to do a bunch of bullshit you wouldn't do if we didn't pay you to do it.
Yeah. And that's all true. I use that quote all the time myself. I love that quote.
That's what the money is for.
I love that quote, and I love the carousel scene, and that's it. That's what I love from Mad Men. But
those are the right things to love. Any final thoughts on Scrooged?
Oh, I don't just have final thoughts. I have another hour on Scrooged.
Oh, do you? Okay, I'll keep going.
Just some things like, well, let's talk about the name. The character's name, Francis Xavier Cross, is clearly, they put some thought into that too. The symbolism is, it was slapping me right in the face this time. Again, something I didn't think about as a kid. But Francis, free man, freedom from the cross. So he's basically a martyr, right? It's this sort of redemption tale. That's why they did it. Now. Yeah. Okay. There's no, and they call him Francis X Cross. So Xavier on its own probably doesn't mean a lot. But the X is just like, I only know this from the PlayStation buttons. Because sometimes they call the X button the cross button. Mm. So just cross.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. Yeah. No, that's probably true. There's a lot of symbolism, I think, probably sort of woven throughout the film. I mean, I guess that's kind of the gist of the scenes. You talked about watching Christmas movies that were available to you that weren't on the list. I watched A Family Man with Nick Cage. Mm-hmm. That's a Scrooge tale, too. It's the same thing, really. Yeah. And the notion there is that he's the sort of ghost of the past is just going to give him a glimpse. And, like, for me, the whole movie is about like these symbolic moments. And, like, yeah, the moments are kind of nothing. but they also kind of encapsulate what it's like to be in this person's life.
Yeah, The Family Man to me is always weird to think about. I never actually saw it, but I'm aware of the plot from the trailer. It's one of those movies where it's like, you know what's going to happen based on the trailer.
Is it weird to you because you can't imagine anybody breaking up with Leoni?
That's a huge part of it for sure. Like, sidebar, David Duchovny had that report about being a sex addict or whatever. Like, that was, not just part of his character on Californication, but also apparently some actual diagnosis he had to deal with. And I always thought, yeah, but you're married to Tia Leoni. What's the problem here? I don't understand. But
yeah. Well, on those terms, that's a little bit like saying, I swore to be life partners with heroin, but since I just can't stop using opium, I don't know what's going on, So that's kind of my thought on that.
Yeah.
I will say, in terms of like my attraction to her, I didn't feel that bad about it because when we were watching Tron, Bailey said, when thinking about whether or not she liked Garrett Hedlund, I said, "You like Garrett Hedlund, don't you?" And she said, "I guess I fell in love with Garrett Hedlund when he did that country movie." And I said, "Fell in love with is a little strong, no? I mean, I'm fine, but like, I don't know." Fell in
That's
love
pretty
with.
good. It's all fair.
I was like, oh, okay. Apparently he did some country movie with Gwyneth Paltrow, and she was real into that. So I don't feel that bad about my thoughts about Tia Leoni. But yeah, no, it's hard to believe you would leave her. This is Family Man's another movie where they kind of draw this like weird binary where he's like,
Well, so again, just the weird thing, maybe the inappropriate thing about The Family Man to me was that it's directed by Brett Ratner, who doesn't seem like he would identify with the material at any level.
Yeah, I gotta say, I was watching some of the choices in the movie, particularly like some of the romance stuff, and I was like, this is so dumb. Who would ever? I was like, oh yeah, it's a Brett Ratner movie. Like literally, I was like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. But in terms of, okay, so another thing in Scrooged, did you catch the bit where it's like the other female employee is like almost coming on to him with the news story about the woman dies watching TV?
Yeah.
And then it's like there's almost a subplot there, but I feel like something got cut because it's like she's just coming on to him for like that 5-second bit, and then that's it. It's never really broached again. So it's like in terms of filmmaking, it seems like a weird thing to leave in unless they just couldn't cut around it.
The way that I took it was just sort of a little bit of like, this guy's fooling around the office and everybody knows he's kind of like open game, kind of like a bad guy. And like, I just mean that like, not even that he was like doing anybody, but it's sort of poor taste to just date around a bunch in your office.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in terms of like Hollywood movies, it's very subtle. Like if that's what they're going for, it's like a little too subtle. So my thought is just there's some other scene that got cut for time.
Well, I do know this actually. So allegedly there was like all kinds of trouble on the production of this movie.
Oh yeah.
And like Bill Murray didn't like the way that his character was, and so there was like all kinds of conflict. And so it could be that you're right, that he was like having an affair with this woman at the office and somehow got it taken out of the movie.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, this is just kind of the Bill Murray performance of this time period, where it's just like he just seems to have such disdain for everything going on around him that, I always wonder like how much of this is just like really his personality and his incredibly dry sense of humor versus being a character, playing a character.
I think you're right. I don't think he's that enjoyable to be around at all. Bill Murray.
The actual man.
Yeah. All the people say like, oh no, you don't understand. You watch a game at a Cubs game at a bar with him, it's the best. And like maybe it is. I don't know. But he does seem very misanthropic, if I can use that word. I think that's the right one for him. Yeah. Do you want to talk through some of the ghosts?
Yeah, I always, for whatever reason, I thought that first Ghost of Christmas Past was like Stuart Smalley. or Al Franken. I don't think it is, right? It's some other guy, but I guess as a kid.
Stuart Smalley the mouse?
No, Al
Little.
Franken, the guy from Saturday Night Live that became senator.
I know Al Franken.
I always just read him as, it was like, when I was a kid, I thought it was like, oh, Stuart Smalley's got like elf ears on and like some makeup. But I don't guess it's him. It's not really a guy I recognize, but he does a good job. He's playing the character well.
I forget which one is which, but which one's the ugly cab driver?
That's the Ghost of Christmas Past. That's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, I hate that guy. I find him so ugly to look at. Like, it really ruins my experience. Like, I kind of block out his whole thing because he's so horrible. So that's probably why I didn't even really, like, register who he might have looked like.
When I was a kid, the stuff that made me more grossed out or more, like, actually want to gag was the golf ball coming out of, I think, Robert Mitchum's head. Like, that always grossed me out as a kid. And then the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come with all, like, the tortured souls in his skeleton always did a number on me as a kid. I was like, but again, that's the 80s. That's what they would do. They'd be like, we're not afraid of scaring the children.
Can I tell you what grossed me out?
Yeah.
The Tab.
Just the Tab soda?
Yeah. Do you remember him pouring himself, was it like a rum and Tab?
Well, I know the Ghost was getting Bacardi, and I think Frank was drinking vodka. I think he was drinking, like, how do you say it? Stolnichia? Stolianka?
Stoli and Tab? Yeah, that was what grossed me out this time. It really made me hungry for Chinese food.
Yeah.
I love Chinese food. Little Chinese delivery, little Chinese takeout. We don't have a great Chinese restaurant near us, so I kind of hanker for it. I don't know. Thoughts of any of the trips back and forward in time?
I think it's funny that they have Bill Murray's actual brother, Brian Doyle Murray, plays his dad when he's a kid. And they have, because I pointed this out earlier, I forgot that his actual brother shows up in the movie, but I said this aloud as we were watching it early on. I was like, that's not Bill Murray's actual brother. They should have gotten Bill Murray's actual brother to play Bill Murray's brother. But I forgot they got Bill Murray's brother to play Bill Murray's dad.
Well, the brothers got kind of like a good all-American thing, and Brian Doyle Murray looks like a foot.
Yeah.
You know?
That's all true. I mean, it's better casting. They know what they're doing.
It's better. Yeah. They know what they're doing. The games night was super weird, right?
It's got a great punchline.
Makes sense. Yeah, it's got a good punchline.
The punchline of like him on TV being like, "It was the SS Minnow." Like it makes it all worth it for the weirdness of the scene itself.
Yeah. No,
and
right.
That ghost, she's just awful. That Ghost of Christmas Present. She's like, what is it? Like she shows up and the first thing is like this sign, the Ballbuster Suite. And then she just kicks him in the nuts. And then she keeps slapping him. It's just like, I wouldn't be able to take it. Like just that sort of repeated violence. I mean, that would, just wear me down. But Carol Kane, an American treasure.
To me, for sure. I mean, I don't know exactly why I treasure her, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Was she on SCTV?
I don't know the cast of SCTV that well. Only the one that made it.
Okay.
So, we get kind of a nice moment with Tiny Tim. We get some redemption. We get a little romance. Elliot Loudermilk is safe and potentially going to get charges dismissed. I don't know. What happens to him?
Well, it's a fairy tale. It's a fantasy. Yeah. Like everyone just gets their best possible ending. Even the censor who gets to assault John Glover and, apparently have her way with him.
Hey, it's a Merry Christmas for everyone. That's a really horny movie.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I still like it. I'll watch it again next year, too.
Speaking of horror movies, we watched Bad Santa. We're going to talk about that next. Do you have any final thoughts on Scrooged?
Just that it's probably, is the list still on the screen on Twitch?
Yeah.
Yeah, of everything that's coming up. I mean, an early favorite of mine. It may be better than anything else on the list, in my opinion.
Wow. That's high praise. Do you think that's really the case?
Okay, that sounds good too. Now, week 3, the holiday.
Yeah, it might be the
on
case.
Sunday,
it
December
might actually
13th,
be the
and then
case.
Monday, the 14th.
I think Home Alone's the best movie on the agenda, but probably Bad Santa's in the top 5.
Sure. Well, even though I haven't watched Bad Santa recently, I can still hold a conversation on it, no problem. I've seen it enough times, and it's a very remarkable movie. It sticks with you.
Well, when we put it on the calendar, we wondered whether or not it made any sense for Lauren Graham to date Billy Bob Thornton.
Mm-hmm.
But it does make sense because she's kind of a trashy waitress who has like a little fetish for Santa Claus.
Yeah.
She says pretty clearly. And basically, he comes into the bar and is drinking alone, and she just kind of hits on him and has sex with him in the parking lot.
Yeah, it's
still
the weird. Even you describing it, I still don't buy into it. But tell me the weird thing.
Now, here's the weirdest part of this whole sexual encounter that they have in the parking lot. They're finishing up in the car, and she's screaming, "Fuck me, Santa, fuck 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 me, Santa." Mm-hmm. And then a man from the bar comes out. She leaves. A man from the bar comes out, tries to rape Billy Bob Thornton.
Mm-hmm.
And the kid apparently having been watching this whole time. The kid rescues Billy Bob Thornton from an attempted rape in the parking lot.
Yeah.
After he slept with the waitress.
I remember this all vividly. What a great movie.
Holy, that was a hell of a way to start the movie. It was nuts.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, and like I said, I watched this in the theater with my dad, and I was like, okay, I can get through this. Early on, I was like, this is maybe...
Do you remember the kid's name?
Thurman Merman.
Thurman Merman, which we don't find out for most of the movie. But yeah, Thurman Merman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that movie was just great. I laughed my ass off. When he's teaching the kid to box, and the kid and the dwarf and Billy Bob Thornton are all punching each other in the nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Bailey and I laughed as hard as we've ever laughed. I laughed so hard. It was so funny.
Yeah. It's a great movie. You know, the waitress thing, if she's a trashy waitress, I just think it's a flaw. It's not a flaw in casting because I like Lauren Graham in the role, but it's a flaw in casting because I don't buy her as like a trashy waitress that is going to just like sleep with this drunk Santa. She's too cute. She's just too cute for this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I mean, she's kind of like a real dirtbag in this movie, though.
Yeah. But they could, I mean, you could cast like someone who can deliver that a little more plausibly. She just doesn't read as dirtbag to me.
Now, we talked about what the meaning of Christmas is, and man, Bad Santa is one of the sweetest Christmas movies I can think of. It's raunchy, it's horrific, sexual, violent, drunk, but it's also really sweet. Do you remember how sweet it is? Did that stick with you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's the bit where he tears through the advent calendar and because he's drunk and then he feels guilty about it later.
Yeah, that was sad.
Yeah.
That was a bummer.
It was
I just mean at the end, he really comes around to care for that kid. It was sweet.
Oh, that was another one where there's an alternate ending that I guess if you watch this on the DVD or Blu-ray, it probably has the deleted ending, where I think there's a version where he's in jail. Or is he in jail in the one you watched?
Well, he goes to jail briefly.
Oh, okay, but then he's back in the home. Yeah, he's back in the home with her. Okay. Yeah, I think there's an alternate version of the movie where it's like he's still in jail because of all the crime. But so he like just has to learn the lesson from there. But again, Hollywood's like, look, it's Christmas. People got to have a happy ending.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was a happy ending. It was a sweet movie. Unique, but sweet.
John Ritter. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't really have that much to say about any of the other movies. We talk Office Christmas Party. I don't know if you got the chance to watch it again. I didn't, so I forgot everything that happened in it. Did you rent this one to watch too? No, but I watched it. Like 10 clips of it. Oh, okay. So you watched, Dave's in the chat right now. Oh, cool. What's he got to say? I haven't been following the chat.
There's probably few actresses who could sell a movie who are also very believable in that role. That's my guess. It makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like the perfect person for that role is Christina Ricci. That's the right actress for the role.
I
But I
buy
don't know
that.
if you, yeah, we all buy it. But I don't know if you want to spend Christmas with Christina Ricci.
I do not.
No, nobody wants to spend Christmas with Christina Ricci. Dave, I'd invite you to the Discord. You should download Discord. You could hop on the call sometime.
But to be fair, I love Speed Racer, and I don't hate her in Speed Racer.
Christina Ricci.
Yeah.
I think she's a good actress. There's things I like about her. I took psychology in college. We had to watch the
Black Snake
Prozac.
Mountain.
No, I watched that. I saw it at the Sundance Film Festival. Actually, that was a
Oh, that's
weird
wild.
one. Yeah, no, I didn't. When I saw it at the time, I didn't realize that would become such a well-known movie because it didn't seem that good to me. But whatever. Anyway, Prozac Nation is what I saw.
Okay, never saw that one.
A great time. I think we're going to end the stream here.
Okay.
But we'll throw
Shout
a
out to
YouTube
Davey
video.
Chaos.
Big shout out to Chaos. Go ahead and hit the follow button. You can subscribe to Evan's YouTube channel at youtube.com/Dr. Comics.
Yeah. That one, youtube.com/Dr. Comics, youtube.com/Evan McBee. We're already following each other on Twitter. It's going to be a great time. And Dave, you got to come on the stream next time we talk about the Christmas movies.
Yeah, fun. All right, man. It's been good. Hasta la vista, y'all.